Namaskaram and a very good evening, friends. So we are in part 4 of Krishna temples of India, and today we begin with the Rajagopala Swami temple in Mannargudi, a very famous temple known for Krishna worship. However, not many people are aware that the name of the main deity of this temple, the stone image, is Vasudeva Perumal, who is about 7 feet high. It's a very grand, imposing image with Sri Devi and Bhudevi. The Utsava Murti is Krishna as Rajagopala Swami, as you see him in this photo on the screen. One of the most beautiful images of Krishna, and he is with his cows over here as Rajagopala with a whip in his hand. There are several very interesting things about this deity. One is that he is called Eka Vastra Dhari. Eka as in one in Sanskritam, Vastra as in cloth, Dhari, he who wears. Usually when you see a god, he'll be wearing an upper cloth and a lower cloth. And here he wears only one. The second important thing over here is that he has a bunch of keys at his waist. The third important thing is, let me zoom. Look at his earrings. Look at his beautiful face first, and then look at his earrings. There are two different earrings. And according to the tradition of this temple, it's a very interesting story. It is that Krishna went to have a bath in the Haridra Nadi, which is the temple tank. And his mother called him out. And it was late for him to go into the temple, so his mother called him. And in his rush to get to the temple, he wore one of his earrings, and he wore one of the earrings of one of the gopis with whom he was frolicking in the temple tank. And therefore, we see him with two different earrings. Generally, it is Shiva who is seen with two different earrings. Look at any image of Shiva and you will see him with two. One is his own earring, and because one half of Shiva is given to Parvati, he will wear a female earring on the other ear. However, Vishnu is not like that. But in this particular temple, in the case of Rajagopala Swami, two distinct earrings are there in his ears. So these are some of the distinguishing characteristics of this beloved god of the Mannargudi temple. And this is how he is seen, worshipped by hundreds over the centuries. This is goddess Lakshmi in this temple, called Shen Kamala Valli. In Sanskritam is Champakavalli. In fact, Mannargudi is known as Champaka Aranya. It was a forest of Champaka trees. In fact, Rajagopala Swami himself is known as Champakesha, the lord of Champaka, this goddess over here. So this is Champaka Lakshmi, Shen Kamala Vaditaya, very beautiful, compassionate deity over here. The name of Mannargudi has changed over the years. It was, let me read this out to you. There are places that end with the word Kudi in Tamil Nadu. There are many such places. Mannargudi, as it is now, is a name that came about only a couple of centuries back. Before that, according to authentic evidence, it was Mannar Kovil. Kovil in Telugu is Kudi. And during the time of the Nayak kings who ruled over Tanjavur, who were very great devotees of Rajagopala Swami, Mannar Kovil became Mannargudi, which became Mannargudi over the years. Now, there are several Mannargudis. One is near Chidambaram on the banks of the Veeranarayana Eri. This is that temple over here. It was called Veeranarayana Chaturvedi Mangalam initially, and it is also called Mannargudi. In fact, our own Mannargudi came to be called Raja Mannargudi. This is Veeranarayana Perumal. This is called Katu Mannar Kovil. Now, this is how he looks. This is very famous because it is the birthplace of one of Sri Vaishnavism's most famous acharyas, Natha Munigal. It was in this temple that he heard many people singing some of the Pashurams of the Alvars, and wanting to know more about them, found that they had been lost over time. Nada Munigal meditated on Madhura Kavi Alvar and is said to have retrieved all the Pashurams of the Alvars and then later set them to tune and taught them to his two nephews, and the rest is history. We have the Nalaira Divya Prabandham with us today. So this is one temple that is very, very important to us. This is Katu Mannar Kovil, also called Mannar Gudi. I'm just running through a few slides. We now go to another Mannar Gudi, now Mannar Kovil in Tirunelveli district. This is again a Rajagopala Swami temple over here. And here again the Utsavamurti is called Rajagopalan. This is a wonderful temple with a three-tier Vimanam over here. This is how the temple of Rajagopala Swami in Mannar Kovil looks. Now, what was the original name of Raja Mannar Gudi, our own Mannar Gudi that we are coming to now? Many names were there. The first name we know is that it was called Rajadiraja Chaturvedi Mangalam. Rajadiraja was the son of the great Rajendra Chola, grandson of Rajaraja Chola. This temple, after his time, was named after Kulotunga Chola I, and it came to be called Kulotunga Chola Vinnagaram. Vinnagaram is a name that is given to Vishnu temples of Tamil Nadu. ChampakaraNyakshetram, this is, and it's also famously known as Dakshina Dwaraka. So these are all the different ancient names of Mannar Gudi. 23 acres, 7 prakarams, many gopurams, 7 mantapams, following the Pancharatra Agama. Among the 2 Agamas of Sri Vaishnavism, this follows the Pancharatra Agama. So now let's go into this temple and see how it is. As we enter the main street leading to the Rajagopala Swami temple, we find this grand stambam. It's made of one piece of stone. This is the Garuda stambam of this temple. Very, very eye-catching. It is said to have been constructed in the time of Achyutappa Nayaka, one of the famous Nayak kings of Tanjavur. And right on top of this stambam is Garuda, looking straight at Rajagopala Swami. This is how the Garuda Mandapam looks. The top structure is made of brick and lime plaster. This is how it is. Very eye-catching, very, very unique. And this is Rajagopala Swami over there with Rukmini and Satyabhama. Okay, and at the base of the pillar, you have some of the sculptures of the Nayak kings, as though they are worshipping. This is Garuda over here. This is Nayak king, in all likelihood Achyutappa Nayaka, worshipping the god over here. That is his wife Mutimamba. We quickly go just for a minute to Sri Mushnam, which is near Chidambaram. And this is another temple which is much older than the Nayak period, but just like the Rajagopala Swami temple, made into a grand structure by the Nayak kings. Here also there is a stamba, the Garuda stamba, but it's not as grand as the one in Mannar Gudi, but nevertheless, this is another one in Tamil Nadu, and the base looks like this. We are in Sri Mushnam now. We are back now in Mannar Gudi. The contribution made by the Nayaks is stupendous. All the mantapas of this temple as we see them today, many of the gopurams, many of the sanadis were built by the Nayak rulers. Who were these Nayaks? They were the feudatories of the Vijayanagara rulers, and starting from the 16th century, the kingdom of the Nayaks came to be established in Tanjavur. All of them were great devotees of Rajagopala Swami of Mannar Gudi. In fact, the Achyutappa Nayaka, whom I mentioned just now, his son was Raghunatha Nayaka. He built some of the gopurams and mantapams here. Sculptures of him performing many dhanams, like the Go Sahasram, etc., are shown over here by way of sculptures. I'll just show you one or two. His son was Vijayaraghava Nayaka. He is also called Mannarudasa. He is a devotee of Rajagopala Swami. No other king has done so much for this temple as Vijayaraghava Nayaka. He built the 4 huge outer gopurams, the 1,000-pillared hall, the Krishna Tirtham, the tank that is found in the temple, many other mantapams, also constructed a moat, etc. Contributed many bronze images to this temple. And in a book, Mannaru Dasa Vilasam, it states that during his time, 3 lakhs kalam of paddy and 30,000 porkash, that is gold coins, were given as rent from the temple's lands to this temple. He composed many natakams which were performed in the temple premises. So these are some of the sculptures of the Nayak kings, distinctive hairstyle, etc., all in Anjali Hasta, found on the Mantapam. This is Rajagopala Swami himself, Garuda, etc. Now we proceed from the Garuda Mantapam through Garuda Stambam, through this Mantapam into the Gopuram of this temple. This is one of the loftiest Gopurams that we have over here. And what is very, very interesting about this Gopuram is, till this level, there are no sculptures. And then starting from here, it's crowded with so many sculptures, but it's so far above that you can't see it without a zoom camera or a pair of binoculars. So this is the very grand Gopuram of the Rajagopala Swami temple. Needless to say, like in the case of most Gopurams, the base is made of granite. This is not an area which has plenty of stone. All of it must have been brought from very far away, perhaps the Pudukkottai region. The lower levels have only some geometric patterns, and this is where the sculptures actually start. So this is the Gopuram. We go through this Gopuram. We need hours to see the sculptures right there on top. This is how the different levels actually look. And then the inner Gopurams are also there. Many sculptures, including that of Ganga and Yamuna on either side. We wash ourselves in the sacred waters of the Ganga and Yamuna and look at some of the sculptures that are there above. In all these round things are the creepers that goddesses Ganga and Yamuna hold in their hands because they are the river goddesses. Here is a very, very interesting one of Vali with the arrow in his heart, piercing him with the arrow that Rama shot. Here you have a Kolatam dancer. This is Rama himself. Many Ramayana sculptures also. This is also Rama, but the Vali Sugriva fight. Vali again, Narsimha, and then we'll go into the temple's premises. There is a 1,000-pillared hall in this temple. Many are there. It's not noted for its sculptures, but for the architecture. Huge monolithic pillars are there as we enter the temple. And again, many sculptures of the Nayak rulers. We come to the Dvajastambam. We keep walking into the temple, come to the Dvajastambam, where again on the outer covering you have Rajagopala Swami with his consorts. The main deity we hardly ever remember. Hanuman on one side, Taya, goddess Lakshmi on the other, and Garuda over here. We pass by and then we see 2 big, gigantic metal Dwarapalakas, Jaya and Vijaya of Vishnu, pass through the Bali Peetam of this temple, and then come to this. This is what we should be seeing. This is Vijaya Raghava Nayaka, whose contribution to this temple we must remember because much of it is what we see today. Here again, this is the Godanam that was done by kings of the Nayak period that is clearly seen over here. All that they gave to this temple. This is the Haridra Nadi. The entire Manargudi area is called Gopala Samudram. Samudram does not just mean an ocean. In the Vijayanagara times, we have lots of inscriptions calling a village or a group of villages a Samudram. So the entire place, inclusive of the temple and the tank, is Gopala Samudram. And this is the Haridra Nadi, the largest temple tank in Tamil Nadu. What you're seeing in the center There is an island. It's not the temple. The temple is at a slight distance from there. There is another tank, Pushkarini, inside the temple itself. But this Haridra Nadi takes your breath away, and luckily it almost always has water in it. There is a saying, Thiruvarur Ther Azhagu, Mannargudi Madhul Azhagu. So there are seven concentric enclosures over there in the Mannargudi temple, and this is a part of the compound wall over here. Many more mantapas, many more monolithic pillars do we see over here. And we are going near the main sanctum. Of course, I cannot take you right inside. This is a small 4-pillared mantapa that you see, again with many, many sculptures of the Nayak kings. There they are with weapons, all of them in Anjali Hasta to Lord Rajagopalaswamy. This is a Chola era temple. In all likelihood, built in the reign of Rajadiraja Chola. It must have been a small brick structure, later changed to stone in the time of Kulothunga Chola, perhaps. But the grandeur of the temple as we see it today is all because of the Nayak kings. We have something very interesting in this temple. The Brahmotsavam, which is usually for 9-10 days in other temples, here is for 18 days. And Rajagopalaswamy comes out in so many alankarams, as many as 32 alankarams. The Garuda Seva in this temple is very, very important. The Teppotsavam also happens in the month of Ani, which is mid-June to mid-July. So these are some of the Nayak kings and queens who have contributed to a great, great extent to this temple. The sanctum of Shenkamalavaditaya, Champakavalli. This is Champakaranya. The temple chariot also has some outstanding sculptures. You have Hanuman as Sanjeevi Hanuman here, Vishnu as Vaikunthanatha, Sita here in Ashokavana with Hanuman there on the Shimshupa tree. Lakshmi Narasimha is here. This is a better photograph. This is Krishna killing a demon, Kuvalayapida, who came in the form of an elephant, and many other sculptures. Muthuswami Dikshithar came to this temple. He has sung 3 very, very beautiful songs over here. Sri Vidya Rajagopalam Saveri, Sri Vidya Rajagopalam in Jaganmohini, Rajagopalam in Mohanam. Many were the people, many were the greats who have come to this temple. There's so much more to say about Mannargudi and Rajagopalaswamy, but there are time constraints, and over to Siddhartha to share his music with us.
Bala Gopala Palaya Shuma 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 Bhakta Vatsala Kripa Jalade Hari Bhakta Vatsala Kripa Jalade Nila Nira sharira anila nirada sharira anila nirada sharira dhira taranila nirada sharira dhira tara niraja karanirupama nandakara lilaya goba vesha dhara muralidhara sridhara damodara vara lilaya goba vesha dhara muralidhara sridhara damodara varabala gopala palaya shumama bhakta vatsala kripa jalade Chanuramal harana nipunatara charana nihata shakata sura murharamani kyamakuta hara valayadhara mate bhakubha bherana patu tara ana vadi vijaya mana sakara ana vadi vijaya mana sakara apahata kausa suranata bhusura dronakana duryodhana dihara draupati manasamra shanakara vainika gayaka guru guhanuta puravairi vihita gopika manohara dronakana duryodhana dihara draupati manasam rakshana karavainika gayaka guru hanuta puravairi vihita gopika manohara bala gopala palaya shumaba bhakta vasana eva jalale
So the next temple that we'll be going to is another famous Krishna temple in Maharashtra, the famous Vithoba Vithala temple in Pandharpur. Architecturally, this is not a great shrine. Historically, it is very, very old. We don't know the exact date, but then there are no inscriptions as we see in many of the temples of South India. But it is very, very rich in devotion, very rich in devotion. like many of the other Krishna temples in India. And herein lies the traditional story of a person called Pundalik, who was very disrespectful to his parents, so much so that they once decided to go to Kashi away from him. But he decided to go with them to Kashi along with his wife, and en route also disturbed them by being extremely rude and humiliating them. At one point of time, he had a vision in which he saw many, many beautiful young women washing the clothes of sages, cleaning the ashram, etc. And wondering who they were, he asked them, and they said that they were the personifications of the great rivers of India, Ganga, Yamuna, etc. But they also told him that his ill treatment of his parents was making him the greatest sinner of all time. Pundalik quickly changed his ways and began to be very respectful to his parents, so much so that he served them day and night. This is a well-known story, but worth repeating many times over. Krishna was very pleased with Pundalik and decided to call on him one rainy night. He knocked on the door. Pundalik very well knew that it was Krishna who was calling on him. But since he was attending to his parents, he told him to wait. And just so that Krishna's feet did not get wet in the rain, he threw a brick and asked him to stand over there. Later, when he went to see Krishna, doing his duties to his parents, Krishna told him that he would grant him a wish, a boon. And Pundalik requested Krishna to stay back on earth and bless all his true devotees. And he agreed to take on the form of Vithoba, or a god who stood on a brick. And this temple has come up over there. Another interesting story that is connected with this temple is that of Namadeva, Namdev, who as a child was asked by his mother to give Naivedyam to the god. He did so, and he expected the food to disappear because the god would have eaten it, but it didn't. And the child began to cry and begged of the god to take of this Naivedyam, of this offering. And even when that didn't happen, he started to bang his head against the feet of the god and to keep praying. And the god finally accepts the offering and eats it and blesses Namdev. In return, Namdev asks him for a wish, that is to be present as the first step in the temple, so that innumerable devotees could touch him before having a darshan of the god. So even today, this first step in the temple is called Namdev Ji Pyari. And it is also believed that Saint Tukaram, a 17th century devotee of Krishna, spent his last days in the temple. What most people know about this temple, what it is remembered for today, is the Pandharpur Vari, or the procession that devotees take. The Varkaris take, thousands of them from all walks of life, praying their hearts out to Panduranga Vitala. I could not get you a picture of the Varkari tradition, but it is one of the best gatherings of humility and devotion, of worship to God Krishna in this country, in the world, in this universe. Very quickly, we'll go to Hampi, the ancient Vijayanagara. Even more ancient was it the place of Kishkinda. Kishkinda became Vijayanagara, is today's Hampi, the UNESCO World Heritage Site on the banks of river Tungabhadra in Karnataka. The Vijayanagara rulers were great devotees of Panduranga Vitala, of Vithoba in Pandharpur. And therefore, one of the predecessors of Krishnadevaraya, who was called Devaraya, built a large temple on the banks of river Tungabhadra for this deity, Vitala. Forlorn is it today. This road would have been the marketplace, teeming with hundreds of people. Only the stray tourists come here. And this is how the three Gopurams, built in the time of Krishnadevaraya, look. This temple has suffered much during times of invasion in the 16th century, and later because it was in disuse. It became dilapidated. This stone chariot over here is very, very famous. This is how it looks today with wheels and all. This is how it looked. This is a photograph taken in 1856. It had a Vimanam, and it had a Vimanam because it is a Sannidhi, it is a sanctum for Garuda. Here is Garuda. And looking straight, this is how the sculptures around this Garuda Sannidhi look. This is Vithala, just as he was enshrined in the main sanctum. I'll show you the sanctum now. There is no Vithala inside, and we'll have to imagine that this is exactly how he was inside the sanctum in this Vithala temple. Many other sculptures, some paintings also on the stone chariot for Garuda inside the premises of the Vithala temple. Today you have some elephants dragging this chariot, this Ratha, but initially there were horses over here, the wheels. This is the main Vimanam of this temple, and there are Krishna sculptures on top, very badly damaged, of course. This is Kalinga Nartana Krishna. You have Krishna here with Rukmini and Satyabhama flanking him, Govardhana Giridhari with the cows. This is how Vithala must have looked inside. Arms akimbo, as we call them, but unfortunately, there is no Vithala inside the sanctum. This temple is very, very well known for its pillars made of resonant stone, which are called musical pillars, which emit musical sounds when tapped. And this is the Pushkarini of the Vithala temple in Hampi. No worship now, sadly, but once a center of great worship in the city of Hampi. And over to Siddhartha.
संत पदाची जोड़ दे हरि संत पदाची जोड़ दे हरि संत पदाची जोड़ दे हरि साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि संत पदाची जोड़ दे हरि साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि संत पदाची जोड़ दे संत समागम आत्मत्वाचा संत समागम आत्मत्वाचा संत समागम आत्मत्वाचा सुंदर उगवे मोड़ दे हरि सुंदर उगवे मोड़ दे हरि संत समागम आत्मत्वाचा सुंदर उगवे मोड़ दे सुफलित करुणी पूर्ण मनोरथ सुफलित करुणी पूर्ण मनोरथ सुफलित करुणी पूर्ण मनोरथ पुरविशि जीविंचे कोड पुरविशि जीविंचे कोड साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि संत पदाची जोड़ दे हरि संत पदाची जोड़ अमृत में रे हरि भक्ताचा अमृत में रे हरि भक्ताचा अमृत में रे हरि भक्ताचा शेवट करिसी गोड़ दे हरि शेवट करिसी गोड़ दे हरि अमृत में रे हरि भक्ताचा शेवट करे से गोड़ दे हरि साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि साधु पदाची जोड़ दे हरि संत पदाची जोड़ दे हरि संत पदाची जोड़.
We next go to, all of you can recognize this beautiful god, Sri Krishna of Udupi. In Sanskritam, Udupa means moon, and Chandra, the moon god, is said to have prayed to Shiva here in order to get rid of a curse. Shiva, pleased with his penance, released him from this shapa, the curse, in his form as Chandramaudishwara. And this episode is connected with the Chandramaudishwara temple, which is also in Udupi, and hence the word Udupi from the word Uduppa, which is moon. According to tradition, the Sthala Puranam of this temple, this image of Sri Krishna was made of Salagrama by the celestial architect, the divine architect, Vishwakarma himself. It is said that Krishna's mother Yashoda wanted to see Krishna again, and Rukmini also asked for a darshan. Therefore, Vishwakarma made this image of Krishna with his churn in the right hand and a cord in the left. Rukmini worshipped this image, and when Dwarka was submerged by the sea, this murti got covered with mud that resembled sandal paste or gopi chandana. The captain of a ship who was sailing near Dwarka happened to load this mud-covered stone on the ship to serve the purpose of keeping the mast erect. When this ship was caught in a severe storm near the coast of Udupi, Madhvacharya, the very famous philosopher, scholar of the Acharya of the 13th century, who propounded the Dvaita system of philosophy, saved it, and he saved the sailors also. When the captain of the ship thanked him in gratitude, and in gratitude requested him to take anything that he wanted from the ship, this great person accepted only this Gopi Chandana covered image. And that's how the image of Krishna was discovered and installed for worship by Madhvacharya after washing it in a tank, which is now called Madhva Sarovara, and in a temple that is close to the Chandramauleshwara temple, which is now the famous Sri Krishna temple in Udupi. This Acharya is said to have composed a hymn called the Dwadasha Stotra at that time in praise of this god. The worship that was started by Madhvacharya was continued by 8 people who are the heads of the 8 famous matas or monasteries that are known even today. They are called Palimar, Adamaru, Krishnapur, Putige, Shirur, Shode, Kaniyur, and Pejavar. They are named after the villages in which they are located in. At the very beginning, the head of each of these matas was to take up the responsibility of maintaining the temple in all respects for 2 months at a time, each in turn. But in the time of Vadiraja, another revered Madhva Guru, who was born in 1480, this tenure was extended to 2 years each. So the sacred ceremony of the head of one matha taking over the responsibility from the previous head is called Paryaya and is attended by a large number of devotees. The arrangements for this festival, this celebration, this ritual are made a year in advance of the actual ceremony. Plantain shoots are first planted, and then rice for cooking for the ceremony are stacked. 7 months before the actual ceremony, firewood is also stocked, one upon the other, in the shape of a ratha or chariot, and finally a dome is placed above it. We'll see the photographs of that. The Udupi Sri Krishna temple is a very, very small one, which has become bigger over time. Slowly, architecturally, little by little, it has grown over time. The main deity can be seen through a window, which is called the Kinkidi, Kanakanakindi. And herein lies the famous story of Kanakadasa, who was at one point of time in his life a warrior, was wounded very badly, and after he recovered from that, spent his life solely in the worship of Vishnu, in the worship of Krishna. He was not allowed into the temple. This was in the 16th century AD during the Vijayanagara times. And he completely surrendered to Krishna and sat outside the temple singing his heart out to Sri Krishna. Miraculously, and this is a famous story, I'm sure you all know about it, the deity turned around to face the direction of Kanakadasa, and a hole appeared in this wall for him to see the god. And this hole is very well known now as the Kanakadasa Kindi also, through which the devotees now have a darshan of the god. So this is the temple as it looks today. The entrance, the chariot of the temple, and this is the Sarovara, the temple tank, the Kanakanakindi. This is how the firewood is stacked up, and a little dome is placed right on top for that famous ceremony that happens once in 2 years. Over to Siddhartha.
Govindamiha Gopika Nanda Kandam Sananda Mavalokayamo Mukundam Govindamiha Gopika Nanda Kandam Sananda Mavalokayamo Mukundam Gopika Gananayana Kumuda Burnendum Gopala Kulatilaka Makhila Janabandhum Gopika Gananayana Kumuda Burnendum Gopala Kulatilaka Makhila Janabandhum Gopika Gananayana Kumuda Punendum Gopala Kulatilaka Makhila Janabandhum Shripadim Anildya Hari Chandana Sugandim Shripadim Anildya Hari Chandana Sugandim Shreyo Vidhai Karunarasa Sindhum Sangita Rasarasika Sarasa Sallapam Sarala Murali Kalita Sadhu Santapam Sangita Rasarasika Sarasa Sallapam Sarala Murali Galita Sadhu Santapam Shringara Rasapurna Shrimadana Gopam Shringara Rasapurna Shrimadana Gopam Siddha Janananda Makhilananda Rupam Siddha Janananda Makhilananda Rupam Govinda Miha Gopika Nanda Kandam Sananda Mavalokayamo Mukundam Govinda Miha Gopika Nanda Kandam Sananda Mavalokayamo Mukundam.
We now go to Dwarka, the birthplace of Krishna. And herein is the famous Dwarkadish temple. We all know that there are Panchadwarakas, but I'm not going to go into that in great detail for want of time. It's just about the Dwarkadish temple. It's also known as Jagat Mandir and Vijay Mandir, located in Dwarka on the banks of river Gomati, where it flows into the sea. It is, in fact, one of the 108 Divya Deshams of the Tamil tradition, or abodes of Vishnu, places sacred to Vishnu, which have been sung about by the Alvars, or the 12 great devotees of Narayana. And among the 12 Alvars, 5 have composed their Pashurams, or Tamil hymns, about this deity. They are Periyalvar, Andal, Tirumeshai Alvar, Nammalvar, and Tirumangai Alvar. This is a Pushtimarga temple which follows all the rules and the rituals as given by the great devotee Vallabhacharya. The Dwarkadish temple is believed to have been constructed at the very site of Krishna's palace where Krishna lived by his great-grandson Vajranabha, and has changed considerably over the centuries. What we are seeing here is not a very ancient structure at all. 2 entrances are there to this temple, which is completely and totally in the Nagara, or the North Indian style of temple architecture. The entrance on the north side is called the Moksha Dwara, the door to salvation, and the one on the south is called Swargada Dwara, door to heaven. The tall shikara, very, very Nagara style of architecture, like many North Indian temples, has the flag flying on top with the symbols of the sun and moon on top. Much better known is that of the Puri Jagannath temple. And it is here, it is changed 5 times a day. There were some historical inscriptions, but all very fragmentary and nothing much can be made from them. There is a shrine for Rukmini also near the Dwarkadish temple. Many rituals, many pujas are conducted from as early as 5 a.m. in the morning. The food offerings that they give to this deity are mind-blowing. So much is offered to Krishna over here. Much more needs to be said about the Panchadwarakas, but we'll save it for another day for want of time. Again, now over to Siddhartha.
Vasudeva nenadu sukhiya gomanuja. Vasudeva nenadu sukhiya gomanuja. Vasudeva nenadu sukhiya gomanuja. Vasudeva nenadu sukhiya gomanuja. Vasudeva nenadu ಈ ಶರೀರದ ಭ್ರಾಂತಿ, ಈ ಶರೀರದ ಭ್ರಾಂತಿ, ಈ ಶರೀರದ ಭ್ರಾಂತಿ ಇಲ್ಯಾಕೆ ಮನುಜ. ಈ ಶರೀರದ ಭ್ರಾಂತಿ ಇಲ್ಯಾಕೆ ಮನುಜ. ವಸುದೇವ ನೆನದು ಸುಖಿಯ ಮನುಜ. ವಸುದೇವ ನೆನದು ನೀರಕೊಪ್ಪಳ ಎಂತೆ ಸ್ಥಿರವಲ್ಲ ಈ ದೇಹ. ನೀರಕೊಪ್ಪಳ ಎಂತೆ ಸ್ಥಿರವಲ್ಲ ಈ ದೇಹ. Siravalaiyalde Siravalayideha Dharani Dhanasike Marulaga Veda Dharani Dhanasike Marulaga Veda Nirajana Bhashri Purandara Vithalana Nirajana Bhashri Purandara Vithalana Nirajana Bhashri Purandara Vithalana Sevi Sukhiya De Suma Sevi Sukhiya De Suma Viraveda Manuja Seri Sukhiya De Suma Viraveda Manuja Vasu Deva Nenadu Sukhiya Go Manuja Vasu Deva Nenadu
We now go to Krishna's birthplace, Mathura, where there was a very ancient temple, the center of which was the prison in which Devaki gave birth to Krishna, and which was so zealously guarded by Kamsa. So scared was he that Devaki's child would ultimately bring about his death. Unfortunately, that temple was destroyed in many an invasion, and a modern structure has come up in its place. It's a small temple, the center of which, as I said, is the jail, the prison where Krishna was born, and there are some sculptures of Krishna over here in worship. This again, more than its art or architecture or history, is a temple that is built upon faith, the faith of millions, as the Krishna Janma Bhumi is over here. I don't have many more photographs because photography is not allowed over here, but I just want to share with you a word picture of a sculpture. I don't have the actual photograph. It's a Hoysala period temple in Karnataka, the Amriteshwara temple in a place called Amritapuri. On the walls of this temple is a sculpture. And there it shows a lady who has given birth to a child, and that is Devaki and Krishna. And next to those sculptures is a man who is falling at the feet of a donkey. Now, this is very strange. And people who don't understand the local tradition of the birth of Krishna, as seen in that area in the medieval times of about the 13th century, will not understand that sculpture. But when explained, it's very, very interesting. It is said that Kamsa was so petrified that the child born to Devaki would kill him, and told his guards to announce to him as soon as the child was born. But he didn't even trust the guards fully. So he tied a donkey outside the room in which Devaki was to give birth, because a donkey is supposed to have a very keen sense of smell. And as soon as there was a newly born child, the donkey would bray, Kamsa would know, he would come there and kill the child. So this is Vasudeva falling at the feet of the donkey, falling at the legs of the donkey, asking him, praying to him not to bray and not to call Kamsa over there. So deep-rooted is the tradition of Krishna. There are many temples that have sculptures of Vasudeva carrying the newly born, going across the river Yamuna to put him in the house of Nandagopa. We know who came back with him. That was Durga Devi, who, when taken by Kamsa and thrown against a stone, rose into the air and said, I am not the person you're looking for. Akasham Pratigamini. She went into the air and she said, your tormentor is still there. And so there are so many stories concerning the birth of Krishna. This temple is visited by multitudes of devotees here. The feeling of Krishna having been born here is so palpable. This is one of the temples that's not just built of stone, it's built of faith, it's built of devotion. Siddhartha, over to you.
नाने के वडवनु नाने के परदेशी नाने के वडवनु नाने के परदेशी नाने के वडवनु नाने के परदेशी नाने के वडवनु नाने परदेशी नाने के बड़वनु श्रीनिधे हरियनगे 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 निरुवदनक श्रीनिधे हरियनगे निरुवदनक नानक वडवनु नानेक परदेशी नानेक वडवनु विद्य हेळुवनीने बुद्धि कलिसुवनीने विद्य हेळुवनीने बुद्धि कलिसुवनीने विद्य हेळुवनीने बुद्धि कलिसुवनीने उद्धार करता मम स्वामी नीने विद्य हेळुवनीने बुद्धि कलिसुवनीने उद्धार करता मम स्वामी नीने मुद्दु सिरि पुरंदर विठल निन्नडि मेले मुद्दु सिरि पुरंदर विठल निन्नडि मेले मुद्दु सिरि पुरंदर विठल निन्नडि मेले ಬಿಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡಿರುವಯನಗೆ ದಯವಯ್ಯವು ಬಿಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡಿರುವಯನಗೆ ದಯವಯ್ಯವು ಬಿಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡಿರುವಯನಗೆ ದಯವಯ್ಯವು ಬಿಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡಿರುವಯನಗೆ ದಯವಯ್ಯವು ನಾನೇಕೆ ಪಡವನು ನಾನೇಗೆ ಪರದೇಶಿ ನಾನೇಗೆ ಪಡವನು I just wanted to quickly thank Chithra aunty for giving me the opportunity to sing, and I really enjoyed performing for all of you. Thank you so much.
We now go to the final temple. Before this, I just want to tell you Krishnadevaraya built a lovely temple for Krishna in Hampi. It's in a very damaged state today. There is no deity there, so I didn't want to really end with that, but I'll quickly tell you about it. Krishnadevaraya led an expedition to the fort of Udayagiri, which is in Orissa. A fort that could not be conquered by any other person was conquered by Krishnadevaraya. And he fought against the Gajapati kings and defeated them. He brought with him, he fell in love with an image of Krishna, Balakrishna that was there, brought it with him and installed it in the Krishna temple that was built in Hampi. Unfortunately, that temple was very, very badly damaged in the war that took place in 1565 between Vijayanagara and allied forces of the Deccanese Sultans, and later fell into a state of complete disrepair, and it became very dilapidated. The Krishna that was there was thrown out of the temple. His arms were broken. He was found in the rubble there by archaeologists, and he is now in the Chennai Museum. So if you want to see a Krishna who came from Orissa to Karnataka and is now in Chennai, please go to the government museum in Egmore on Pantheon Road, and you will see that Krishna over there. But that's too sad a story to end the series of lectures with. So we very, very quickly go to a place called Oothukadu, a small village about 12 kilometers from the famous town of Kumbakonam. According to the Sthala Puranam of this temple, sage Narada prayed to Sri Krishna to provide water for this place. And with his blessings, a pond appeared from a spring of water. Thus the name Oothukadu. Uthu means spring and Kadu means forest in Tamil. In this pond, Sri Krishna enacted the Kalinga Nartana episode, or his fight with Kalinga, in front of sage Narada and two divine cows named Nandini and Patti, the daughters of the wish-yielding cow Kamadhenu. After watching this divine dance, both these cows went into a trance and later regained consciousness with the grace of Krishna. Even today, the name of this place is Denu Shwasapuram in Sanskritam and Moochukadu in Tamil, both signifying the breath of cows. This place is also called Dakshina Gokulam, Ken Gokulam, the Gokulam of the south. Narada prayed to Sri Krishna to stay on in this village as the divine dancer to bless his devotees. But this is only a bronze image that we see today here. The main image is Vedanarayana Perumal. Like in Mannargudi, the Utsava Murti takes away all the credit over here in Oothukadu. This is how Krishna looks. This is Nandini and Patti on either side of him. The greatness of the image of this Krishna is that his feet actually, all of you know it, but I'm just reiterating it. His feet do not rest on the hoods of Kalinga. There is a gap and it has been sealed with some wax or some other substance. The entire weight of Sri Krishna falls on the fingertips that are holding the tail of Kaliya. It's not actually touching it. So the entire thing is attached, the entire image of Krishna is attached only here. This is an outstanding bronze image. It's Kalinga Nardana Perumal Sannidhi is over here. Everybody knows it as the Krishna temple, but the Perumal is actually Vedanarayana Perumal. This is how the temple actually looks. It's in a much better condition today. I had taken these photographs many years ago before the Samprokshanam, the consecration happened. This is the Vimanam of the main Sannidhi over here. Many festivals take place in this temple. There is a small Sannidhi for Venkata Kavi. We all know that Oothukadu Venkat Subbaiah, better known as Venkata Kavi, who lived from 1700 to 1765, was a great devotee of Sri Krishna and well-known music composer. He moved to this village when young, and thus the prefix to his name, Oothukadu Venkata Kavi. And he knew music, and he was in search of another teacher for higher learning. But not being able to find a proper guru, he surrendered to Lord Sri Krishna in this temple at Utukadu, who is said to have blessed him. And knowledgeable in both Tamil and in Sanskritam, and well versed in the nuances of music, he composed many kritis that are sung by musicians till today. Very many are his songs on Sri Krishna. It is said that Krishna in this temple listened to his songs and kept the tala beat for him. And this is the small sannidhi for this great devotee, composer in this temple today. Next to the temple is the tank, which is said to have been where Krishna enacted the Kalinga Nartana episode for Narada, bereft of water today. And this is the street that leads to this temple. And it looks like we are coming into another century, back in time when we come into the Sri Krishna temple, the Utukadu Krishna temple. So I would like to thank all of you for listening to this program. My heartfelt thanks to the organizers of Tattva Loka once again, to Srimathi Sharla Panchapikation, to Sri Rohit Vishwanath for all the help that he has been giving us, to Shreya for the technical assistance, and last but not the least to this young boy Siddharth, who in the midst of his all the academic work he's studying at Stanford, has given us enough time to practice all these kritis and to render them for us. Thanking all of you once again. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Thank you.